How about now? You getting audio now? I hope so. Little bars are going up and down now. Look at that. All right. So basically, what we're going to be doing today is I decided to turn on the camera in the kitchen, which means bringing up lights and means doing some other things. There we go. And things like that. So yeah, it turns out to be a little bit of a production. What can I say? But what we're going to do today is I'm going to make some soup because I tend to do soup that, my wife and I can have for lunch right now because I'm working from home. She actually just started going back, so we'll see how that works out. And also we're going to make some bread because, I think bread's kind of cool and I'm having some fun, and it lets me use my KitchenAid with that funny this thing. Really makes bread pretty simple. If you don't have access to a bread machine, I can't justify buying one, so it is what it is. So the other thing is, I think I'm going to start doing just a little quick series, like Chris does things, where I'm going to do different things throughout, the weeks. Things I have to do around the house. I have to do some artwork for something, so maybe I'll turn on some screen cap stuff and you can see my process for that. Have some fun with it, and see what happens from there. So, well, without further ado, let's get started. So we have two things that we're going to make today. We're going to make some basic loaf bread. This is great if you need something to make sandwiches with. It's not too long as far as bread goes. It moves along pretty quickly. And then we're also going to make some soup in the meantime. So there'll be plenty of time for chat and questions. So if you have them, please ask away. Oh, it's a coffee kind of day. All right, so what do we got? So I had to do some bread. So I got our KitchenAid. I got everything pre-measured. This is actually not my recipe. I'm not that smart, let's be honest. The recipe comes from, it's called Josh Weissman, and he has a YouTube channel, and it's absolutely fabulous. So I wrote it down so we can do everything together. Let's start off with blooming yeast. So you have to bloom the yeast first thing. And this one is definitely going to be best if you bloom it ahead and give it about 10 minutes to play with. And it's a combination of water and milk. So this is 3/4 cup of water, 1/2 cup of milk. Now also heated this up to about 100 degrees. You want this warm to the touch. That's what we're going for, because yeast wants to wake up. It also helps that I actually keep my yeast in the freezer, and so I need to actually kind of warm it up even more. Now what I do is I have, you can go buy the packets. These are great, but I'll be honest with you, these never come in the exact amount I need. It never works out. So I actually switched over and I bought just a pound, and then I keep this guy in the freezer and I scoop it out as I need it. It will live a very long time in the freezer. It's been very active so far. So, it's just a good way to keep yeast. Airtight container. Don't let any moisture get in there and you'll be fine. Also, yeast does not like salt, so never put your salt in this mixture. If you have a sugar or something, you could, if your recipe calls for it, but definitely don't put salt in there. That will not help. So this is just dry active yeast. Now this is about 9 or 10 grams, nine, which is about a tablespoon. One thing I learned, I've been doing baking now for a couple weeks because I've been having fun, is I like to use weight measurements over physical volumetric measurements. They seem to be a lot more accurate, especially when it comes to yeast and flour, because flour, depending on how you pack it, be all kinds of things. All right, we're gonna give this a mix. All right, and then we're gonna set this aside. I'm just gonna put a cover on it and we're gonna let it go. I got my lily pad, throw that on top, and it's gonna sit there for about 10 minutes. All right, so next we want to do our flours. Now I have a scale and I just do my flours right into my bowl. So the flour is nothing special. I don't go buy bread flour. I don't do anything like that. For me, it's just a matter of, you know, I just buy a good all-purpose unbleached flour. That's all I need. Zero out my scale. And now I also set it to grams. So tearing a scale means making it zero even with the container on it, so I can weigh the ingredients separately, which is very helpful. And then we're going to weigh this in. Now Josh's recipe called for 440 grams of flour, which is roughly 3 cups. And my first attempt at this actually was a little on the wet side. So I actually upped my flour by about 1/4 cup to 480 grams. All right. If you don't have a scale, that's just a heaping 3 cup. All right. Now I tell you, flour has actually been really hard to come by here lately. And my wife kind of looked at me crazy the other day when I showed up with two 10-pound bags. But I've been enjoying baking. It's how I kind of relax and gives me something to do throughout the day. So I'm like, flour doesn't usually go bad as long as you take care of it. All right, so once that has the 480 grams, you don't need to sift it or do anything crazy with it. We're gonna add 8 grams of sea salt to it. So that's what this is. This is just some Greek sea salt. You could use regular salt. I would just be careful. All right, so we're gonna take this up. It looks like a lot, but it's really not. All right, and then we are going to put in just about 1 tablespoon of sugar. I mean, it wouldn't be white bread if it didn't have a little sugar, which I believe figured out to be about 5 grams of sugar. All right, so you have your dries in here. We have our sugar, we have our salt, and our flour. We're going to give that a quick mix because we want everything distributed evenly. All right, so we got a nice flour mix. It's going to go on my trusty KitchenAid. And we're still waiting a few minutes here for our yeast to kind of get active and kind of get going before we start to knead the dough. So we will just give that a few minutes. So sound off if you're in chat, say hi. Let me know I'm not just doing this for Gordon's sake, even though if I am, that's totally cool. Gordon and I can hang out. I'm fine with that. All right, so we got some coffee today. No, there's no alcohol in it. It's a little early for that, even for me. That and I kind of, under quarantine, I kind of put a restriction on myself that I couldn't do any day drinking. You know, I can't play video games during the day and I can't day drink. They're just my things. Hello, Aiden. How you doing today? All right. So we have our yeast mix. We're just making the bread real quick. So we have our yeast kind of getting blooming, we like to say, in our milk and water mixture. And then we have our dry ingredients with our salt, a little pinch of sugar, and our flour ready to go. It's amazing how much flour you go through when you start baking bread. It really, really does fly by. So what we're going to do is we're going to let that rest a few more minutes. I want to see that bloom a little bit more. All right, we have our pan here. I'm going to grease this up real quick. Now, it's not going to be used for the one we're making here, to be honest with you. The breads require 2 rises. They require time to kind of rise as the dough itself, and then it will rise again you know, kind of like the South that way. It rises again on the second rise after you kind of knock it down a bit. So you need to usually give yourself a good couple hours. Now, I just made a dough the other day that actually took overnight to actually rise. So, you know, it's all relative. But a couple key factors to letting a dough rise is you want to put it someplace warm. Now, I don't know about you, but up here in the Northeast, our house it's been weird. There have been a few warm days and a few cool days. So, you know, on a warm day like today, putting it on the counter is okay, or in the summer's fine. I've heard of people putting it in a car. That's fine too. But you want it someplace warm and humid to proof. And that's going to be optimal. Now, for me, my stove was on earlier, so the first batch I made, I kind of put it nearby on the stove and let it sit there. Another option might be to turn your oven on for a minute or two and then just turn it off. And then you can throw the dough right in there. And sometimes you can just turn on the light bulb in the oven. Might actually create enough warmth in there to do it. But if you keep a cool house, then like in the 60s, it might just take longer to proof, and that's fine. But obviously, if it's a little warmer, that helps the process along. We have these nice boxes in commercial kitchens that we can actually put them in, called a proof box. It'll keep it warm, keep it moist, and you can dial in the humidity and the temperature, which is pretty awesome. So, all right, so we got our loaf pan. That's all buttered. We're gonna need that in a few minutes because we're gonna get this guy going. All right, so jack this up. I got my dough hook on. Hopefully it's not too loud. And I'm just gonna pour this in, kind of gently. Oh, you can start to hear it starting to come together. Now I tend to find if I lift from one corner, sometimes I have to do that with my bowl here, just to kind of get everything together. And then this is actually relatively short knead. This guy's only going to take about, I don't know, 2 to 3 minutes total to knead the dough. And we're just going to let that run for a bit. No worries. You're hanging out for the soup. The soup is coming. Don't worry. We'll get that started. I just want to get this kind of knocked out real quick. All right, my dough's it's a little flaky in here. It's kind of hard to see. I'll show you when we're done. But it's starting to come together and knead together. If I were doing this by hand, hand tends to take about 3 times as long as kneading with this guy. This guy really saves your arms. Ooh, I love it. And it's good if you want to make, let's see, I made pizza dough the other day, so we could have some fresh pizzas. That was pretty cool. All right, so what we're looking for in here is the dough's come together. It's a nice big ball, and I'm looking for it to kind of get smooth. It doesn't really take too long, and like I said, if it's really wet or if it's too dry, that's why I adjust the flour a little bit. I don't know exactly where Joshua Weissman lives, but maybe he lives in a higher altitude. Maybe he was using bread flour. Maybe he had other things in there when he did his recipe that just kind of changed it a little bit. So, you know, don't be afraid to up or down your flour just a bit. All right, so, hope that's not too loud. I'm just going to pull this off to show you real quick what we look like. So we kind of have this ball here. All right, and it's still pretty soft, and it should be slightly warm from the butter and the milk. And the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to add in a little bit of fresh butter right here at the end. All All right, so in will go a few pats. It's only about 3 tablespoons. So we just kind of pop it in. We just want to work that into the dough. Hopefully I don't get it on the hook. Ah. All right. And we're just going to knead until that disappears. That's a really good question. So how is bread flour different? So bread flour actually has more gluten. Then you have like all-purpose flour, which is kind of in the middle. And then you have cake flour, which is the least amount of gluten in a flour available. And why that is because gluten is what really kind of makes the dough nice and stretchy and chewy and all that fun good stuff, right? So cake flour, if you were to use that for this, that would actually be quite bad, because that would be no gluten, which is what really makes bread work. It's the yeast rising and stretching the strands that actually makes it work. All right. Let's get this bad boy off. Get them out of our way. We're kind of done with that. So the last thing is we have our dough. You can see it's pretty soft. All right, that's good. We're just going to kind of just knead it a little bit. Notice I didn't really put any flour down here, and that's fine. I just want to kind of get this into a ball. Still a little butter on it though, I'll tell you that. All right. So we're just going to kind of just knead this a second, and then we're going to kind of make a ball out of it. And how we make the ball is I just kind of keep curling around underneath it, and as I'm going, I'm just kind of tucking. What we want to do is create some surface tension across the top of the dough. All right. You could use wheat flour for this. I would just, obviously it's going to give you kind of that more wheat bread look and texture and taste, but I would only kind of work it in maybe half and half at first, and then kind of go from there. All right, so we have this. I'm just going to put it back in this bowl. I'm just going to put a little spritz, and then we're going to pop this dough right in the bottom. All right, and then I'm going to cover it with a towel. Now, we're going to let it sit for at least an hour. What we want to see is we want to see it kind of double in size. So that's going to take a little time. All right. Let's get that flour off and we'll get ready for the next step. So real quick, that's how much you get. I mean, that was the same amount, right? It just happens that really, really puffs up. It's great. Now we're going to do what's the fun part, and this is called knocking the dough down. And basically, we do just that. We just kind of knock all that air out. I'm not beating it up, and I don't want to get rid of it all, but we do want to gently knock it down. All right. And then this bowl was also lightly greased, so our dough will come out nice and easy. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to put a little flour here on my surface, just to kind of dry it out. Then we're going to drop this bad boy. All right. Now, this is going to be a loaf, so this is going to be a little different than what I would do if I were, say, you know, baking a brioche or some other kind of bread, or even like a country bread, a country loaf. So what we're going to do is we just want to make this a really nice even riser. So we're just going to roll it out gently. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to make it thin. I just want to make a nice uniform kind of slab here. All right. There we go. That looks good. Really happy with this. This is only about maybe 3/4 of an inch thick, 1/2 an inch max. All right. Now, I want it to be as wide as this loaf pan, because what we're going to do is we're just going to roll it up here. I'm just going to make a log. My first time making this recipe, so I'm really curious to see how it turns out. All right, and we want this log to be pretty even. This is what's going to actually rise and give that puff top shape that we expect from like white bread and things like that. All right, once we have that done, we're going to pop it in our loaf pan. We're going to even it out. All right, just like that. And now we need to start our second proof. So our second proof is going to be a little longer. It's going to be about half an hour, maybe an hour in length total. So I'm just going to put it over there, put a towel on top of it, and it will be good to go. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to take that straight like that, and we're going to pop it in the oven. It's going to go 350 for about, I don't know, maybe, 35 minutes, I believe. Let me check my notes. 35, 40 minutes. So depending on your oven, depending on its placement, if you have extra stuff in your oven, things like that. All right, let's talk soup. All right, so I got my nice thick heavy pan. This is one of my favorite Dutch ovens. This is a Le Creuset. I love this guy to death. He is absolutely fabulous. We're just going to put a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of the pan. And that's going to really just be for when we go to sweat the onion. So when it comes to making cream of broccoli soup, you really don't need a lot. And to be honest with you, I could make any cream soup this exact method. It really doesn't matter. The method is pretty much the same no matter what. So if you want to make a cauliflower, if you want to make a sweet potato, you could. It's not a problem. This method works. It's pretty much the same. Now, I will tell you that there may be an extra step. Like if you want to do a cauliflower, I might roast the cauliflower. All right. First things first, let's get our onion sweating. So I'm going to chop our onion. We got a fresh one here. I'm going to take off the non-root end. We're just going to chop that down. I like to teach my students whenever they're chopping an onion or anything round, get it flat as soon as possible. So this end is going to go flat on the surface. Now it doesn't wobble. It's just safer that way. Going to go straight down. And we're just going to give this a quick peel. All right. Again, that root end's intact, so I don't really care. It kind of keeps everything together. All right. So how's everybody else faring out in the world? You know, it's a little weird here, I will say. You know, Pennsylvania went on lockdown a little early, so things have been stressful, and now slowly it seems to be the world's getting smaller as this problem gets bigger. But, you know, we do what we can, best we can. All right, so I got our onion. Now the onion's pre-cut, right? It's got these arches in it. So all I'm going to do is I'm basically going to be cutting it a couple times, and I'm going to be cutting like a clock face. So I'll cut it on an angle, straight down, and an angle, and then I just do a chop, chop, chop. Right? Same thing with the other guy. And then a chop, chop. Oh. job. All right, let's get those in. All right. Now I just want to sweat these, all right? The object is I don't want to fry them. Okay, frying is not the goal here. So just kind of like a medium-low heat. Break up any of the really big pieces. All right, clean up our trash. All right. So just sweat these down for a while. Now, any cream soup, basically, like I said, can be done this way. All right. Now, I have some in my spice drawer over here, so that's why. See, we got some fresh thyme. We're going to need that. Let's see, we want a bay leaf. So, there you are. Yes, they're alphabetical. All right. Now, I tend to like to grab, you can grab smaller bay leaves for this project just because we're going to blend it. So they should be all kind of chewed up. And I reserve my big pieces for when I'm doing like sauces and things like that. All right. The only other thing we're going to need is some fresh pepper. We'll get that in a minute. All right, these are just sweating. This is a medium heat. All right, I just, what I recommend whenever you make a soup, especially a cream soup, is I like a nice heavy pan. Because if you use like the really thin, like stainless steel pans and things like that, it just tends to get too hot too fast. And the idea for a soup is we want a good low simmer, which is much better executed with the use of a nice heavy pan. We're going to keep going. All right. So broccoli. Now my supermarket only had broccoli crowns, so that's what I got. But if I had stems, that's completely fine. As a matter of fact, in a restaurant, 90% of the time we would use the crowns and we would actually chop up that, and that would be for service. But then all the stalks and all the stems is actually what we would make the soup out of. So, you know, it's kind of a nice treat that if you're making soup out of this, is not, you know, there's a lot of flavor in this that you have to work a little harder to get the flavor out of the stems. So that's kind of nice. Now, I don't have to use all of this. It depends how much we're making. But basically, you know, if this was a full head of broccoli, like full head and stalk, I would do 1 onion to 1 full head of broccoli. However, since this is smaller, we're going to kind of up that a little bit. You're going to notice I don't measure a lot. I'll try and give you guys some clues and some things as I go along here, but really it's a lot of on-the-fly measurements. All right. So we're just going to chop this up. And I don't really care. I just want them all to be roughly the same size. Whenever you're making a soup or anything like that, the main goal is make things the same size. All right, that'll make it a lot easier to cook. It's going to cook at about the same speed. You could use frozen if you wanted to. You know, again, I think you lose a lot of the flavor. And a lot of the flavor comes from not necessarily the ends that we tend to like to eat. A lot of the flavor from cream of broccoli does tend to come from like the center and this stuff. So I don't think you get enough of that when it comes to, you know, using a frozen product. So use fresh if you got it. And again, it doesn't have to be broccoli. It can be anything. This base is pretty universal. If I were doing something like a butternut squash or anything like that, what I'd do is I would roast that in the oven before we did this. And then that way would get that nice caramelized texture. I would just do a little salt and pepper and olive oil on it, roast it, and then kind of add it. I kind of like the nutty flavor you get out of it like that. but it does no good to broccoli. We're not bringing anything extra to the party. All right, so our onions are starting to turn translucent, which is what we want, but there's no brownie bits on the end of it, okay? So you can see here it's not really browning, nothing like that, right? Now's the time I'm going to add in my bay leaf. Any firm herb I want to add now. So if you wanted to use rosemary or anything like that, now's the time. Speaking of time, about a tablespoon, all right, of thyme. It's probably one of the main seasonings in here. And then we're going to add some pepper. All right. Now I like fresh cracked pepper. I don't want to use the powdered pepper. I think it's definitely a different flavor and a taste. All right, and what I want to do is I want to saute my ingredients here because the oils that are trapped inside this little jar here of herbs, we want them to kind of come out as much as possible. And the only way we can kind of coax them out is with heat. So that's why they're in now. Otherwise, it would just be like a tea bag and we would not get all the flavors out. That makes sense, right? If we would just put herbs in a soup, it just doesn't have the same effect. So get them nice and warm in here at this stage before we're going to add in any of the liquids. So, all right. So this is all nice and good. I can really start to smell the thyme coming up. The pepper's starting to come through. Definitely the bay leaf. So that's all good. You can see in here we're nice and coated. Stuff all over there. Now we're going to dump our broccoli in. All right. I'm just going to give it a good mix. And why is that? I just want to coat the broccoli with any of the oils and things that are in there that are kind of all over the onions. It's just good habits to get, whether you're making a sauce or whether you're making a soup. It's all kind of the same family of stuff, right? All right. So now we're ready for the stock. So this is just some chicken stock. All right. Now I'm going to turn up my heat, medium, high, because I want to get this kind of nice and all heated all the way through and get it simmering as fast as possible. Now, I'll give you my golden ratio, which is if I'm making this soup, it would probably be 1 onion, 1 head of broccoli to 1 quart of stock, and then a quart of heavy cream or half and half. That's that's everything. All right. Now, depending on how rich your stock is, will depend on how salty it's going to be, but it also will depend on how much you need. All right. If you have a very intense, rich stock, you probably want to back off and not use as much, and you want to kind of level it out. In any event, however much liquid I put in here with the stock, or if you put a wine or you put anything, notice I'm not putting the cream in. The cream is going to come in way at the end of the process. We're not going to do that until the very end. But right now, I want enough liquid to cover all of my veg. All right. So if you look inside the pot, which you can kind of see in there, yeah, that's pretty good. You can kind of see that it's pretty much just at the top level of all of the veg. Now, if you don't make your own chicken stock, that's completely cool. Go buy it if you have to. There's a couple different products on the market, right? So we have chicken stock that you can buy in the box. We have chicken broth. We have other things. We have the low sodium. We have the no salt. What I use is I use no salt chicken stock, all right? Because I want to control how much sodium I'm taking, and these things can have a lot of sodium. All right. I also want to use stock because stock is different than broth. Broth is just basically boiled, cooked chicken bones. That's it. Nothing fancy going on there. That's it. Whereas stock will have other herbs and seasoning in with the chicken bones at the same time, so it's going to give it a more fuller flavor. Okay, if you go out and you're buying like rotisserie chickens or anything like that, save all the bones from them and just boil them with some water. If you want to throw in some onions, some celery, and some carrots, perhaps a little pinch of thyme in there. Great, that will give you a nice stock. And then all I do is I take it and I have little jugs and I just freeze that. All right, boil it down and get it nice and rich, and then just save it, because you can use that for, oh my goodness, we can use that for soups, we can use that for rice, we can use that for a lot of different things. Chicken stock is very, very, very handy to have laying around. It's one of my favorite things. So, but if you must buy it, which, let's be honest, we don't all have time, we don't all have fridge space to be able to make chicken stock. I get that, that's fine. Then try to buy the low sodium or no salt version at all. And look on the sides, because you'll be surprised just how much sodium is actually in these guys. All right. So when it comes to the soup itself, we're just going to kind of like let this go. Now this is going to go. This is not very exciting. Okay, I'm not going to lie. We want to get this up to a boil, and then I'm going to drop it down to a good simmer, and then we want to cook it until it cooks all the way through. Probably going to be about half an hour, if I'm honest. It's going to take some time to kind of cook down and get all the flavors in there that we want, and also to kind of extract everything. Now, to be honest with you, because we also use the crowns, this is going to be a little shorter. Had I used the stalks, which are really fibrous and dense, they would take a long time to cook. And to the point where I even usually would strain that, because they tend to be very woody and very pulpy. Unlike, say, the broccoli caps that we have here, which will make this go pretty quick. This is also a great way to do like cream of mushroom soup. I would do this exact same way. If my wife liked mushrooms, I would probably be making that a lot more, because it's a personal favorite, but it is what it is, right? Okay. Ugh. This is exciting. So how's our bread doing? So what we're doing is we're gonna sit here and we're gonna kind of wait for our bread to double in size. Now this is a little warmer over here, so I'm gonna kind of have our bread hang out here. The one we dropped in, show you that. I don't know if you can see that. That's actually almost, that's already started to puff up. It doesn't take long, especially with a good yeast. And pretty easy to get, and just keep it fresh. Like I said, I just keep it in the freezer. Makes my life a lot easier. The freezer makes things easier. All right. You don't need to know when I'm getting text messages, do you? All right. Now the next tool we can talk about, we'll talk a minute about pans real quick, and then we'll talk about the my immersion blender. Love this thing to death. I'm going to turn the oven on. We're going to get that started up at around 350, so it will be good to go. All right. And it just started to boil, so I'm going to back down the heat. All right, so, you know, I do get asked, I give you a little of my background. So I was a chef for over 10 years, professionally working in kitchens, and then I decided to go out, and I spent a lot of time working in managing kitchens and restaurants, and kind of recently left that part of life because it's insane. I can't imagine what service people are going through right now. It's really scary to think, you know, people who make $2.83 an hour having to deal with this, and it's just outright frightening, because even if you think about what that means as far as wages and things, it's just very scary. So if you can support those people, support those people. In any event, so I spent a lot of time doing that. In the last, I guess 6 to 8 months, I've started working for a local retail store. You may have them out near you. Sur La Table, that also does cooking classes, and I absolutely love it. I love it to death. And it's so much fun to sit there and talk to people, you know, and really kind of get passionate about food with people who love it. And just like any hobby, you know, cooking comes with its own paraphernalia and everything you need to get, but you don't have to go crazy. I think if you need a few things, right? You do need a few quality items, but then for the most part, once you get done that, you just kind of need some skills and practice, right? So things you need in a kitchen. I think you need a good cast iron Dutch oven. Now, do you need to go buy Le Creuset? Absolutely not. There are plenty of other pieces of equipment that will get you 90% of the quality that this has, and will probably last just as long in the end of time. So definitely recommend that. Lodge makes some good stuff. I just happen to live near Le Creuset outlet, and I got this. This was a steal. I think I got it for basically a third of the price. So it's the only reason I have this set of Le Creuset, you can see it back there, that I have, is because I got super deals on them. And if you asked me to find the imperfection on it and why it was considered a second, I couldn't tell you. So, you know, find ways to do that, but I think you definitely need a Dutch oven. Now, this size, this is a 7.5 quart, and I love this guy. And then I have a 5.5 quart, which also comes out a lot. Both very versatile, but this guy with the big lid, I can do a pot roast. I can do small chicken in here. This is great for if you're feeding up to 4 people. Highly recommend it. Great piece of equipment. Second thing I think everybody needs, and I think you need a grandma's cast iron skillet. You need to be able to sear things, and that never got its coat of oil after the last time I used it. So we're gonna season that up a little bit. They're great, $20, $30 if you want the big ones. Just solid piece of equipment. I use it constantly for searing things. I do a lot of, sous vide and other methods of cooking. So it's great to have that ability. The care, so I think people get hung up on how hard it is to care for them. It's really not that bad, okay? What I normally do is as soon as I'm done cooking with it, we remove the things, I let it cool down because it's like, probably 700 degrees when it's coming off the stove. Let it cool down a little bit, and then I immediately kind of start getting some water in there. Little bit. I don't want to crack it or anything, so I'm very gentle. And what I want to do is I just want to kind of scrape the bottom and kind of get all the stuff off. And then if I need to, I can use a wire scrubby or something. I don't want to ever use soap. All right, never use soap. And then we just want to scrub that. If something's really stuck on there, you can make a paste out of like lemon juice and kosher salt, and you can really scrub, and it'll actually be like an abrasive and clean off the bottom. And then usually while we're eating dinner, I'll do that right before we go to sit down. While we're eating dinner, I'll put the pan back on the stove for a good half hour and just let it heat. And then when it's done, I turn it off. We'll do dishes. Usually my wife does dishes. I help a couple things. And then I come back over and just put a little bit of oil on it and then just wipe it all off. That's it. That's all you have to do. And it's super easy. It's super quick and gets great results. Now, you can't make a pan sauce in it. To be honest with you, you wouldn't want to because you kind of get all the flavors that are in that pan. But that's not what that's designed for. You need a stainless steel skillet for that. And then the other thing I think you need a stainless steel skillet. Let's see, I only have one big one, but I'll pull it out because I like it. So this guy, it's got some really nice high sides on it. It's a nice stainless steel finish. I could make this soup in here if I really wanted to. This sucker will hold 7 quarts, so I get a lot of bang for the buck. This is great for searing, making pan sauces, things like that. I like the high sides. You can get the saute pans. Well, I forget. I think they call that a skillet now, but this guy's called a saute. Love it. Love the depth. Use this pan a lot. Very, very handy. And then the last thing you need a good stainless, you need a good, not stainless, you need a good non-stick pan. Now I just use it's called a green pan, and this has just got a good ceramic coating on it. It's not that Teflon, it's not going to chip away or do anything like that. Very nice and hard. I will tell you though, no matter what you use for non-sticks, never turn it up to high heat. Only ever like medium to medium high. You go any hotter than that, they're just not gonna hold on to their coating. They're gonna tend to burn, and that's actually what will cause Teflon to delaminate from the product, which is just not good. Not good at all. And then you wind up with all those problems. So, all right. So I don't know if you've noticed, but while I was talking there for a few minutes, the soup was starting to boil a little bit, so I just kind of backed it down. The thought being, if it's boiling, it's actually reducing. All right, so that means that it's going to actually concentrate flavors, which sounds great. And if you're making a sauce, that's what you want. But when we're making a soup, we don't. We just want it to simmer and kind of cook everything inside there. So it's very, very, very easy, tender. We don't want to go too crazy. Get a nice simmer and let it go. If you find that you're boiling off your liquid too fast and you're exposing too much of the actual food because you're losing liquid, you could add a little water back, because really that's all that's coming off here is steam. So you could add a little water back to kind of reboost it and kind of give it some liquid back. That's completely fine. All right. Wow. So you remember how big that was, right? Look at that. Guy's coming along nice. So it's been about half an hour. He's been sitting there. So I kind of like that. But I still want to let it proof a little more. So we're going to kind of like let it go. But we're going to keep it over here so it gets the warmth and it kind of gets that steam. Also, I don't like to tightly cover items when I'm proofing them. So that's why you see I just have a tea towel sitting right here on top of that, because I kind of want the heat to be able to get in there, and if there's any moisture in the air, that's fine. We're not trying to trap moisture in and things like that. So, you know, having it up there and having it covered and just kind of sitting here, that's all we need. All very good. All right. Aiden's trying to make the best of the situation. I feel you, Aiden. I really do. It's really strange. I kind of think it's interesting because I unfortunately was working for a different company and lost my job last fall. So they kind of sold off all the assets of the company and laid us off bit by bit, and it's been rough trying to find something to do, for sure. So I kind of feel like I'm ready for this, but at the same time, it's very stressful. So, you know, if it's stressful for me, and I tend to do okay with stress, I tend to show it, and I bake a lot of food, I do a lot of things like that. I fix things around the house. But other than that, I'm like, it's tough. And everybody, it's not just You know, it's not just one, it's everybody, right? Even the people who have jobs and who are not furloughed and things like that, they're still completely stressed out because now they're usually getting either heavier workloads or they're trying to have to work through difficult times in their own companies because, you know, either they have more going on or less. So even though it feels like a lot of us are slowing down, there's also a lot of us who are getting stressed out because they're speeding up. And, you know, it's hard to remember that sometimes because I feel like like all my friends should be on speed dial and we should be able to talk and hang out and have fun, right? But then you're like, well, everybody's situation's a little different. So, all right. I'm just going to give a quick post. All right. Looks good. All right. So we're going to play an 18xx game tomorrow night. I think I'm going to stream that too. So I think we're going to do that. 7 o'clock Eastern is what it's looking to be. Tony Fryer and I are going to hook up and we're going to play something online. We're going to do that. Next week is going to be fun because I have a game of Kids on Bikes starting up, but I don't know if that's going to actually get broadcast, but there is a game of Fiasco that we are going to broadcast that I think will be a lot of fun. So, you know, if you're around and you just want to have something on in the background, man, Fiasco is hysterical. I absolutely love it. If you ever have a chance, it's not like a full-on like RPG game. But it's a storytelling game where you're kind of put yourself in a Coen Brothers-esque movie. And it's absolutely a blast. I completely love it to death. You really kind of make yourself feel like you're in one of those crazy heist movies and, you know, you're rooting for the underdog and, yeah, it never works out. Never works out. All right. So let's see, we got our soup going. So we have our base. So, you know, in our base, what have we accomplished so far? So let's just recap. So we made our bread. We kind of got that going. So we got that sitting over here that's rising. So it's kind of near the heat. And then we started our soup. We started by sweating some onions. We sweated those for a little bit, and then we added in our thyme, our bay leaf, a little bit of pepper, and let that kind of go. And then once they kind of got almost kind of done and you could smell the herbs kind of giving off their oils that we want them to extract out, then we added in our chopped broccoli. And again, you can use any part of the broccoli. I used the crowns because, you know, we're kind of at the mercy of our grocery stores right now. And it was pretty good. And they went in, and then we just kind of added our stock to that just to cover the level. And it was about 1 onion to 1 full head of broccoli. So a lot of fun going on here. Now, it's very exciting, right? We're watching bread rise and we're watching soup cook. It's kind of like the equivalent of restaurant paint drying. Let's be honest. Soup is kind of meant to take a while. It's meant to cook on a stove all day even. But, you know, this kind of soup, it's going to be relatively fast. I mean, how long does it take to actually steam broccoli? That's when you're going to get maximum extraction of flavors anyway. So that'll be pretty good. But again, man, mushroom soup like this, oh, so good. It's one of my absolute favorites. Maybe I'll do that. I'll do that next time. We'll see. But like I said, I'm gonna do some of my cooking. I'm gonna broadcast a little bit of it if I make something cool. This one's, I think, a little ambitious. Doing both a bread and a soup. That's kind of crazy. I was gonna do it like a rustic bread, but I decided to try this loaf bread because I have to make 2. Because I had to do the first proof before you all showed up. So I'm going to give 1 to my neighbor. I'm going to be nice. Have I ever played the RPG Honey Heist? No, I have not. I unfortunately haven't played many RPGs in my lifetime. I played old TSR, probably Redbox, like D&D back when I was a kid. Played some Top Secret. That was one I played a lot of. And then Paranoia. If you want an interesting one, Paranoia is pretty good. But I like Fiasco because I feel like Fiasco you can kind of set up, you can get running, and you can kind of play in a night, right? I think you can get that done. And I think Pep McDonald is going to be on to play with us. I love playing with Pep. He is so much fun. So much fun. He's one of my favorite board game people, period. He's just... he's a good dude. So he's going to come on and play with us. And I'll see if I can get some other people on. I have some people from the Incorrigible podcast. I think we're going to get at least Emily. Maybe Emily and John. We have to see if we have enough seats. I don't know if I'm going to probably either lead it or play in it. But I got to set up graphics for it, which means I also have to pick the play set we're going to use. So what I'm going to do is actually going to probably broadcast that in a few days. We're going to actually go through the process of picking the play set, and I'm actually going to make the frames. I'm going to broadcast that, and that's going to be even more different because I'm going to just desktop capture my PC that I do my artwork on, and we'll just kind of walk through that and kind of how I make it look and what we want to give the treatments for and how I lay that out. So I think that might be fun, right? And then maybe I'll broadcast an artwork. So I think I'm just gonna title this segment "Chris Does Stuff." Like, you know, you want to come? I got to go fix my hot water heater. Let's go. It'll be good. All right. So our bread here. Oh, it's coming up nice. Look at that. Look at that. So tell me a little bit about this honey heist, Aiden. What's it all about? It kind of sounds... I assume it's got to be in this Cohen-esque kind of feel and vibe where you think it's going to go one way and it doesn't. It goes the other. So I'm curious to hear about it. All right. All right, so we got our cream. We're going to need that in a few minutes. We'll need salt because I haven't seasoned this yet, right? And we'll need our blender. So I put a you're a bear and a master criminal. I mean, that kind of describes Winnie the Pooh, right? Like, wasn't he? He was always trying to get that bear. I love the way RPGs are kind of going, and I'm really excited. The kids on bikes. I love that. I was very late to Stranger Things, and that really is, it's an enjoyable show. It's a little more on the meta side than I'm kind of liking, and the kids on bikes is more about like Goonies for me, and John Gilmore wrote a great play set, so I'm super excited. I've had that thing for... I think I picked it up last year, 2 years now at PAX U, and I got super excited for it. And then what was even cooler was I got to hang out with Norm from Geek and Sundry for a little bit one day as I was working a booth and talking to him, and I'm like, oh yeah, we were talking about Paranoia, and I'm like, I just picked up Kids and Bikes. He's like, hey, that's our game, because Hunters publishes it as well as Renegade Games. So I was pretty excited. I'm like, that's pretty cool. The Teens in Space, I don't know. That's not really striking like the chord that like Kids on Bikes does. Because come on, man, I was a kid in the late 70s, most of the 80s, and my life was spent on a bike, man. That's how we went from A to B. if you had to do something, it had to be within pedal power distance. You didn't just get to, you know, mom and dad didn't drive us everywhere. And if they did, it was like you had to have a distinct plan because there was no playing around. Oh, nice. So Hayden's telling us a little bit more. It's like you got to pull off one last big mission to steal the honey from a place, a time, and things decided on, right? But you're very clearly a bear, but you roll a d8 and decide your disguise is just a hat. So kind of like Paddington, I guess. So you could be, you know. I don't know what it takes to fool a bear. So that's the question, right? Okie dokie. All right. I think we're at the point I'm going to pop the bread in. All right. It's kind of filled out our loaf pan. I love it's got this nice puffy texture. It's almost doubled in size. You can just tell it's just like almost at the top of that. Oh, it looks gorgeous. I'm really excited to see how this is going to come out. So I am going to pop it in. Now it says 35 minutes, so we'll see how we do. 350 Fahrenheit. Oh no, will we still be on at that point? Oh nice. Do you get to choose which hat you wear, Aiden? Or is it just kind of, is it a table that tells me what hat? All right, so 35 minutes, we're gonna go. All right. Has anybody learned anything yet? We having fun cooking here? Come on, it's exciting. All right, so let's get back to the soup. So the soup is starting to kind of soften up. If you can kind of see in here, you can kind of see the brightness is kind of out of our broccoli. It's getting pretty soft. So we're going to let it cook for a little bit longer. But the other thing you can kind of tell is because it's not boiling, this liquid level is staying even with the ingredients, okay? So again, if you need to adjust that, if you're boiling it and it's going a little too fast, add back a little water, okay? That's totally cool. Also, we're not going to thicken this with any flour or anything, so this is one of those, if you want to do gluten-free, you can. If you just want to do a puree of this without adding any cream, you can totally do that too. You just kind of stop here, buzz it down, and be good to go. All right, so let's talk a little bit about tools. So this is my immersion blender. My immersion blender, I love it to death. Also comes with had to find that utility drawer, right? Comes with a whisk attachment. So if I want to do some like heavy whipping, usually like say egg whites or something that I don't want to use, you know, the big boy stand mixer for, because look, if you're just doing a couple eggs, you don't need the stand mixer. That's just a lot of work. You can get by with one of these. So I like that this guy kind of comes with two attachments. If you want one of these, I highly recommend it. Just make sure it's at least like a 300 watt guy, because if it's not, they just tend not to be as powerful, and then you're never going to be able to chop like a soup or anything like that. So, you know, just be careful. Buy a decent one. You don't have to buy the best one. Buy something that has good, you know, range of speeds on the top. This one, I think this one actually even comes with like a little prep and chop, which I don't even think I could put my hands on right now if I had to. I never use it. So, if I'm chopping something that's small, I'm just going to do it by hand. Let's be honest. All right. So that's getting good. The other nice thing about the immersion blender is I can just use the same pot. I don't have to make anything else messy. But I will tell you, if you want it really, really, really super smooth, you're really going to have to use an actual blender. Okay, you know, your Vitamix, whatever. Those guys are great for actually blending this down to a really, really fine puree. Now, me personally, I'm okay having a little convenience and making my life a little easier, so I just tend to blend it by hand. So I don't have a problem with that. All right. So I'm just going to set this guy on medium, and we're going to go. The only trick to this is don't lift it out while it's running. We don't want to do that. All right. Is anybody picking up any hobbies or anything while we're doing our time here alone? Are you trying to learn anything new? So just take your time when you're using one of these, especially because I don't have, it's not super deep, so it's very much close to, I could lift this out and just splatter it everywhere. Probably wouldn't even reach the camera. I also find that when I'm doing this with the blender, I tend to just kind of tilt it a little bit, and that kind of helps draw things in at the bottom. And then stomp out any of the big bits. Then when it gets nice and smooth, I'll tip the pot. And we'll run it. All right. Now, I'm going to turn it back up because mine is a little thin. All right. But hey, it's a lot easier to have it thinner rather than too thick. And we're just going to kind of like let it cook for a little bit here. And then pretty soon is when we want to start checking the flavor. All right. So what I teach, I like to talk about where does salt come from in our food. So if you made this with roasted veg, you salted them before you threw them in, right? If you were making this from chicken stock you made yourself, perhaps your chicken was all nice and seasoned, so you got salt from that. If you bought low sodium or stock like that, then you're also going to get salt from there. So just think about where your salt's coming from. And I like to put myself in that frame of mind before I taste things. Because if I'm paying attention to that, then I know that the salt, where it's coming from and where it can be adjusted to. Because I don't want to have too much in there. As I'm getting up there in years, salt's, becoming something that I don't want to say I'm watching. I'm not that old. But I'm definitely conscious of how much salt I'm having. So I have to, just like if I can trim it back, I can. I also have a theory on salt. My theory is this. And sorry if it's a horrible analogy, okay? But when you breathe, your brain is telling you to breathe, not because you need oxygen. Your brain is telling you to breathe because you have a buildup of carbon dioxide. That's what actually triggers the breathing part, okay? So I like to think of that as salt, all right? When I want you to go and realize that salt is not something I want to taste, but I want to know that I don't need it anymore. So when I salt something I want to taste, does it need salt or can I taste salt are two completely different questions, okay? Can I taste salt? It's probably too salty for me. I'm not going to like it. But if it needs salt, then it just kind of needs it to open up some more flavors. Does that make sense? It's a different way to think about it, but I think it's important because I think we need to watch and be aware of how much salt we have. I also tend to like kosher salt over, definitely over table salt. I don't use that, which, hey, you know what? It can actually be a problem, right? Because they put iodine in that salt, and iodine is a mineral we need. So if you cut that out entirely, you could be losing a vital mineral. So there is something to be said for regular iodized table salt. And before you ask, I know they do not make iodized kosher salt that I know of. But I like kosher salt because kosher salt, and I keep it right here. I have a little one of these guys. And then this is just because I can just pinch it and I can feel exactly how much I have in my hand. So it gives me a very tactical, I'm a board gamer, what can I say? Tactile feeling, and it lets me know exactly how much I'm salting my food. So I think that that's very important these days, is to kind of, get that touch and get that feel for cooking. All right, and I think kosher salt does that. Now, I keep sea salt around, and this is usually what I'm going to use for baking. So this went into my bread. This goes in whenever I need a finer salt product because, kosher salt is very coarse, as it's supposed to be. The sea salt tends to be a lot finer. The only rub with sea salt is that it also can vary greatly in how salty, how saline the product actually is. So just be aware that, if you pick a brand and you start to use that, just kind of stick with one and then know it. I worked for a Greek restaurant and fell in love with this guy. And if you're Greek, have any Greek friends, go to a Greek restaurant, you know this bottle, right? It is very good. It's just very easy to use, relatively accessible, and quite delicious. So I like the kind of sea salt flavor it gets. It's just a little different. Iodized salt just tastes, I don't know, it's different. And then, of course, you have what's called a finishing salt, which is your big flake salt. Now, that's really only going to be used for exactly like it says, like tossing on a salad or a bowl of food right at the end. So, do with that as you will. All right. It's exciting times. My soup is bubbling away. You know what? There's only a few of you in here. I'm okay with that. I'd be cooking whether you're here or not, but I get to share it with you, which is cool. And I got to make an extra loaf of bread for my neighbor, so there's that. And who knows? Maybe somebody will watch this after the fact and then they'll learn something. But we'll see. So I'm just simmering the soup now. You can kind of see it. I got a nice little bubbling surface. And what that's literally going to do is kind of get rid of any of the moisture in there. All right, extra water, I should say. And I want to kind of thicken this up a little bit, kind of richen it. You notice that I didn't do anything to thicken this, right? We didn't add any, cornstarch. We didn't add any flour, no roux. This is literally just thickened because of the onion and the broccoli that went in here. So that's it. All right. I think we're going to go a little long. I was planning on about an hour and a half, but our bread kind of took a few extra minutes at the beginning there. So I think our loaf is looking to come out in about 20, so we'll kind of shoot for finishing up here in about like 20-25 minutes or so. And we're just going to let this guy go. But so things are crazy out there. I get it. The wind is blowing to beat the band today, so if you hear that, I apologize. But, you know, I think it kind of comes down to what can you control and what you can't. You know, I can control my cooking. I can control this space, which I think is why we do it, right? I think this is why I tend to kind of hunker down and kind of make this, you know, for the last 2 weeks, my wife was at home. She works for Kohl's, so they started recalling some of the management to go in there and help start moving some orders and things. So it's been awfully quiet in the house, which kind of sucks. I mean, it got really nice, like, you know, hanging out with my wife for 2 weeks was actually kind of nice. You know, we have one of those relationships that's weird because we don't see each other all the time when we're working. So when we weren't working, it's kind of strange because you can be in the same house and then, you know, it's that whole work from home thing, right? Where you don't even realize that, oh wait, there's somebody else in the house right now because she'll just sit there and read a book the whole time and I won't even know she's here. But I'm fortunate. I'm trapped inside with a gamer. We haven't gamed that much though, to be honest with you. But hey, the option's there. She loves the game. She loves the heavy games. So she's not going to train game with me, which is cool. But you know, I don't think she'd like them at all. But we definitely can break out some heavy stuff. So I think we'll do that tonight. I have a conference call this evening. Some cool stuff we're going to do. And then I think we're going to play that, have some fun. So I can't complain too much. All right. So we're going to wind this down. I'm just going to keep cooking because I can. I know it's exciting. Soup's exciting. What can I say? All right. And we're just going to add about half of this heavy cream in here. This is really, since it's already pretty thin, this is really all I need. All right. So 1 pint to 1 head. And we're just going to cook it down for a bit. And that's it. And then we're going to adjust seasoning. So definitely need salt because we haven't added any salt yet. So a 3-finger pinch for me is about a teaspoon of kosher salt. I'm going to do that twice. I was kind of hoping that there'd be a few more people, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, I agree, Gordon. Board games really kind of help spur that interaction, and I think, you know, they say that there's a lot of like introverted people who watch board game or play board games and things, but ultimately, maybe we are. I think I'm a little bit of both. I think I'm an omnivert because I can be completely happy being by myself, but after a while I kind of need a little interaction, right? Even this is enough. But I think that we still kind of need that, and I think that that's ultimately what kind of draws us, or draws a lot of people. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but it draws us to board games because it gives us a reason to be together and with other people and potentially at a place you like. one of the reasons I started liking board game meetups out here, because there was always at restaurants and the people who ran them liked good beer, so it was always a nice kind of mix of things that I like to do. So I can't complain. All right, fresh spoon, by the way. Pretty good. One more shot of salt. So another quick teaspoon. I think we're good. I'm also gonna add a little more pepper because I just don't get enough pepper in here right now. We put a bunch of grinds in at the beginning. We're gonna do it again. Yeah, so it's hard. Like, I mean, are we able to replace that, that kind of that camaraderie of board games with other people? What can we do to kind of keep that going and keep that part of our brain fed? I think is a tough thing. Like, I'll be honest with you, I struggle with it because I want to go play a game, and I kind of feel like, well, I can go log in and play like an 18xx game for 4 hours, but then my wife is just up here hanging out while I'm downstairs playing the game, and I don't know. There's something that kind of feels like off about that a little bit, and that's kind of something I struggle with. Is where's the point? Where's my obligation to spend time with my spouse versus play games? Even though we're spending hours and hours and hours together, more than we ever have our married life, save vacations in the last month. But I still feel that, I don't want to say obligation because I don't feel that need, but I feel like I should do it. I feel like it's the right thing to do. So it's going to be a hard week because I have several evenings that we're going to be doing that. Hi, Jennifer. How you doing? How's Minnesota? We're just finishing up. I think I've talked myself into doing new segments that I'm going to be calling Chris Can Do Stuff, or Chris Does Stuff, or something, where, like, today we made some bread. It's sitting in the oven. Oh, it's looking good. It's got about 14 minutes left on it. Looks like we're going to hit that. We made some cream of broccoli soup today, so that's pretty cool. And I think we're gonna maybe Saturday. We're streaming a show Friday night, so maybe Sunday or something. We'll put together and do some artwork for an upcoming Fiasco game we're gonna stream on the channel, which I believe is going to be Wednesday night. So I'm kind of excited about that. I love Fiasco. It's so much fun. Good times. Did you get any of that snow in Minnesota? My friends in Montana got some snow, but I didn't know if you got that. I was very jealous. Philadelphia, for the first time I can ever remember, we got no snow, like no significant snow this year. One time I had to shovel the driveway, and it was literally just because it was like an inch and maybe an inch and a half. It was enough where I felt like I needed to clean off the driveway so my wife wouldn't wipe out and take herself out. So, hey Gil, how you doing? Yeah, you could, if you want, if you'd like some soup and some bread, feel free to come on by. Contactless pickup on the front porch. I'm totally cool with that. I don't know if it's worth the 2-hour turnaround drive, but I think it should be pretty good. So, yeah, we're just sitting here chatting. See, I love snow, so I'm very bummed that we didn't get it this year. All right, so we're winding down. How are you all coping? Gil and Jen just joined us. Jen, you're a longtime fan of the show. I love hearing from you. Thanks so much for hopping in. But how are you guys coping? Gil, are you still, I guess you're not doing Drive-In 10 events this year, so I don't know how that's going. Sunny day, a sunny, snowy day though. We call them bluebird skies for a reason. Like I could be okay with that. I'm gonna cheat for a coffee. I need another coffee, but I'm just gonna make a. Just gonna use the Keurig. Ah, Gil was cooking. What were you cooking? Were you cooking some famous Brazilian awesomeness and drinking some, was it Campianis? While you do it, or you were knowing you were probably just drinking beer. Having some fun. So we made our soup. I'm just kind of boiling it down a little bit, letting it thicken up, and I'm just about to call it done. Got a nice cream of broccoli. There's nothing in here to thicken it. It's just a nice puree. I like it a little chunky. If you didn't like, well, I shouldn't say chunky, but it's not super smooth. We stuck the hand blender in there for a bit. Let's do that again, actually. We'll just buzz it for a few minutes. Because now that we add the cream in there, that should help. And I love this thing because I can do it right on the stove. I tell you, one of the best tools ever. Phone call? Who calls anymore? Oh. It's nice when the phone knows it's spam. All right. So our bread is baking nice. Lovely. Our soup is kind of done. So I gotta get a container. I swear I'm coming back. Look, there's only so much prep you can have ready. Considering we pulled off soup and bread. 2 loaves of bread because I baked one. I started one beforehand. How's our proofing coming? Wow. If you were in earlier in the show, you'll see that's about almost double the height that it was when we started. It's going to be a nice white bread, kind of like me. And then we're going to pour this soup right in that container. And hope it fits. If it fits, I caught it on tape, right? All right. Got some dishes to do now, but there we go. There is our cream of broccoli soup. Now, if you want to make cheddar cream of broccoli, it gets a little funny. What I do is I would buzz in the cheddar now, or fold it in at this point, because if you do it too earlier, there's so much oil in cheddar cheese that it tends to break. Also, be careful and get a dry cheddar, okay? Because it just will get very waxy, especially if you use like cheap cheddar cheese. I tend to like Parmesan or something like that on top. Have you ever tried to put small pieces of bread dough in the broccoli soup? No, I tend to like to put the bread in the broccoli soup after it's been baked. Get like a nice bread ball or something, and that's good. And again, adjust your seasoning now. Oh, well, Jennifer, you can rewatch. It's not that hard. You can do it. Do you have time to do this? I don't know what your life is like right now. I mean, mine, I work part-time from home, so I do that. Actually get to work for Renegade Studios, so I'm spending a lot of time doing work there. And then I usually spend my afternoons cooking and crafting, and I thought I'd just share since there hasn't been anything on the channel. Oh, so good and easy, like 4 ingredients. It's not that hard. That'll be lunches for the next week. All right, maybe I'll do a segment on coffee. Chris does coffee. I'll be bouncing off the walls because I'll do a pour over. I'll do a French press. We can have some fun with that. Maybe go get some good beans from the local place. They're doing there are a couple stores that are doing some cool things around us. They're doing like pickups, they're doing deliveries, they're doing shipping, but they're still local. But it's nice because what you can do is you can pull up and usually call in, pop a trunk, and they'll just drop it right in your trunk for you and close the door so you can deal with it when you get home, which I'm really loving. Although it's a sign of the times, right? I did that this morning. I went to a store that's awesome. It's a provision. So these are the people who sell to restaurants. They have a lot of food right now that they need, that they're trying to find places for. And I found one of the ones I used to use when I was a chef near me. If you're nearby, Indian Ridge Provisions, love them to death. I've always loved their food. And they do this thing where they do a family box. And they have chicken breast in there, they have ground beef in there, and it's this box that is just, you know what? Let me get it. I think that'll be fun. Let's open it up. I haven't opened mine up yet. All right. Now I did go through and wipe down the whole exterior. One thing that kind of lives in my house is I have a little 10% bleach solution that kind of hangs around. But they made this box, and this is what they call a family box, and it's supposed to feed a family of 4, like 5 meals. So I'm like, sure, I'll give it a try and see what you got. The other nice thing is that it's stuff that's been prepped fresh, cryovac'd, and then frozen. So it's already frozen, ready to go, so that I can just thaw it when I need it. Which, for me, especially since I cook sous vide a lot, it works great. So we have, goodness, we have a bunch of chicken breasts. We have some ground beef. Let's see, we got some pork chops, some pork loin, looks like. We got some top sirloin steaks. All right, I'm digging that. We have some. So in the business, we call this BPV, beef pork veal. And if you go to my local grocery store, it's really annoying. They don't do veal in beef pork veal mix. They now do beef pork. Which, if it was like half and half, I could live with that. But it's like literally 2/3 pork and 1/3 beef, which just, I don't like the texture for meatballs and things. I like that beef. So I'm not too thrilled with that. But all I got to do is these are nice, cryovac. I'm pretty excited. This is cool. I was happy. And I'm glad I opened it because I didn't I didn't know it was frozen. So glad I wasn't thinking on that for dinner tonight. But that's pretty cool. So, if you're looking for food and things like that, you know, go check out, find local purveyors. I found this out from an article in the local paper. Actually, was on telling us about this, and this was very cool. You know, I wish we were financially able to help out a lot of like the local restaurants and things like that. We really just can't. But it's you know, if you get trying to find a place to help businesses that you like, even if, for instance, if you follow me on Facebook, you see me constantly. I constantly am putting on a couple friends who own restaurants because they're doing takeout, they're doing delivery, they're trying to keep up and do new things with their business, which is super awesome and exciting, and at the same time provide meals for first responders and things. It's really awesome to see my friends step up. So you know, I may not be able to give them money. You know, they obviously don't want me. They can't pay me to work there or anything. I don't have time to give them. Give them a share. Give them a shout out. Let people see that, you know, there are people who are making a go of this. And all right, I think our bread's done. Making a go of this and trying to get through some rough times, right? You know, small businesses and small restaurants and things are going to be dramatically hit. I can't imagine what it's going to be like trying to restaff restaurants because it's going to be a struggle. We're in for a strange time. All right. Our bread. All right. Now, I like this. Sounding pretty hollow. So I like that. Let's pop that out. How's that? Huh? Kind of impressed. It's kind of amazing. So we'll let that cool down and then we'll slice into it and see what it's all about. But just kind of a basic white sandwich bread. Probably could have let it proof a little longer in the pan to kind of give it a little more height. So I think the next one that I make, I'm going to do that with and just kind of let it proof. But I was trying to rush a little bit, not going to lie. And cool that pan down, and then we're going to do that. So there you have it. We got some awesome soup made. We got a nice loaf of bread. And I think that's good for the day. So I think at this point I'm going to say thank you everybody for watching. If you're watching, thanks Jen and Gil for stopping in. I think I'm going to do something again on Sunday. Maybe we'll spend some time and I'll stream some art that I'm going to do for the Fiasco game. We're going to live stream Fiasco on Wednesday night. I think we're shooting for around 7 p.m. Got a few friends on. The Incorrigibles are coming on, or at least one, if not two, are stopping in. And my friends Victor and my niece is coming on. I'm kind of excited about that. I think it's going to be fun. My first time role-playing with her. And we're also going to have Pep McDonald said yes, so I'm kind of excited. We're going to get Pep on, and we're going to have some fun playing Fiasco, which I love doing. So I got to prep for that. So I think I'm going to do that on Sunday. We're going to do some of the artwork. We're going to set up. I got to pick the set, which is the basic. I want to say the setting and everything that we're going to play in. I still have to pick that. So I think I'm going to pick that probably tomorrow. I have a few more coming in. I'm picking up another guide. And then once we get that, then we'll kind of figure out, because that'll kind of determine what our physical, our board is going to look like. And we'll try and create some artwork for that and have some fun. And yeah, I'll set up the cameras up in the studio. Man, my house is getting overrun by stuff because now I'm in the kitchen. I have my art studios upstairs, the TV, YouTube studios in the basement with the game room. Yeah, we're all over the place. Gil, you want to join in? You know what? I think I'm gonna try and make regular game a Fiasco. So I will definitely add you to the list. I love Fiasco. I think it's a great way to play a one shot. So yeah, I think we can do that, and I think it's entertaining to watch. I think so. I could be a little biased on that regard. So yeah, as long as somebody has an internet connection and a camera, we could probably get them to play. So, well, everybody, I am going to call that here because I need to clean up my kitchen. I got dishes in the sink. I got bread cooling down. I still got to bake this other loaf I got, and have fun today. So there you have it. Soup and bread. Took a little longer, but I enjoyed getting to talk with you, have fun. I can talk to an empty room. I don't care. I don't care. But I was really happy to see you guys come in. So have fun. Stay safe out there. Stay sane. Practice good things. Bake some good bread. Get some yeast in there. And enjoy yourself. So we'll check you next time. Look for that on, we're doing an 18XX tomorrow night. And then we're going to be doing, we're going to do the art stream. I'm going to shoot for Sunday. So we will see you then. So until the next time, have a good night. All right. So now I just need to do this thing, or I should have really done that. And have a good night. There you go.